Hello, I'm Mark Hull, in case you haven't met me before, and this is my guide to catching up on exploring and enhancing employability for those people who have missed some of the early classes. So, um, without any further ado, let's get on with this. This is a mid-module recap of everything we've done, and obviously it's going to point you towards the right areas, the right weeks to look at the lectures and so on. So we're going to recap what the module is, where we are, and guide you to where the right material is. Um, and so the lecture is, recap of the most important fundamental module concepts, then a quick mention of assignment one, which of course is done with now, what you should have learned and got out of it, and then assignment two, a guide to what we've already had, and then some further guides as to what you'll be doing from week 8 onwards, and a very, very brief outline of assignment 3, because that is mostly covered next week, along with the exact interview techniques and tools that we will be using. Okay, so let's just move you out of the way there. The basic concepts. Let's just start with the overview of the course. So it's in really 4 parts. The first part was weeks 1 and 2. We did the introduction to the overall concepts. Second part in yellow was about keeping your job and getting a job. But that is where making a presentation, for example, is the kind of thing that you can be expected to do in any job. And there were some techniques for how to make presentations and things, which were shown in week 3. So if you want to catch up on that, then and the theory of what you should be doing when you make presentations, that's there in week 3 lectures. And now we're moving on week 6 onwards to the business of finding a job. And we've already covered a lot of the theoretical tools that you need, the CVs and so on, in weeks 2 to 4. So we'll just be putting that all together and then talking you through the interview process. And then we'll be running one with the beginning of an interview, just the first 5 minutes of an interview. And then the final bit, which is done only in week 12, is where you put it all together, you submit all your stuff, and you reflect honestly on how you have done, what the experiences were like working in a group, going to an interview and doing the whole course, how you've changed any attitudes and mindsets that you've got, as well as theoretical concepts, and then your own personal development plan for the next 18 months. So we kick off with one of the fundamental concepts from week 1, which is likely career paths. And in week 1, we contrast this with what was traditional career paths in the 20th century. So along the horizontal axis here, we've got your age, and we're not going to consider much beyond 80. And of course, when you were a child, you didn't have a job, you were a child, and hopefully you were supported by parents or guardians, and they were the people who gave you income and love and all the other things that parents do for you as well. And up here we got the purely pecuniary measure, income, and so how much is your income rising? And what we're saying is that in the 21st century, for a start, people don't retire at 60. They're much more likely to retire at 70 or beyond. And so people have careers and phase out their lives. So we have later life careers. I mean, I'm 65 now, and I'm hoping to go on until I'm 70 at least as a lecturer. But I'm not working, the full notional 40 hours a week. I only work part of the week, and I've got other things going on in my life as well, and that's what everyone should have. And then looking at the early stages again, so there you are, being students and going through life, and then you will develop a first career, whatever it is. I don't know. Possibly you don't know, but you will find something. What will then happen in your life, almost certainly, and this does happen almost regardless of whichever career you take up, is that you will have to reinvent yourself. Even, doctors and vicars and people like that who think they've got a profession for life, they do actually have to reinvent what they do. Um, and so you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And if you talk to people in their 50s and 60s now, most people will say, oh, yes, well, I started out as this, and then I've done all sorts of other things. And they can tell you their second and third careers. And then you have, midlife careers and later life careers. And of course, there is the whole business of having a family. When are you going to fit having children in? Um, and how do they fit into careers and work-life balances and so on. And that's something that you've got to work out yourself. Okay. So we have a succession of careers. You have to reinvent yourself between each one of these. Further details, see all the slides in week one. One of the other things that we talk about also is the brutal reality of what I call the numbers game. And this is the sort of perspective from a job hunter, such as yourselves. And I've been through that, and so has Paul many times. And if we think of a typical job, and these figures come from LinkedIn as Barco, then we can see that people may see an advert for a job in some, whatever it is, online forum or something like that. And maybe 1,000 people see the original posting. And some people think about it. A lot of people don't. They're not interested, not looking for a job. I'm happy. But say 200 people start applying. But actually, the business of applying for a job is like writing a major piece of work. It's an essay. And, that's going to take a lot of time. So actually, not everyone who starts applying for a job finishes it. I mean, some people consciously say, oh, I didn't realize they needed this. I haven't got that. No point in applying. And other people just give up or other things have got too much else to do. So only 100 people perhaps finish applying for a job. And then only perhaps 4 people get an interview. So that's straight away a 96%. You can measure it as a failure rate, but what means is you're going to have to reverse these numbers around a lot. So if you want to go to 4 interviews and get 1 job offer, you're going to have to apply for 100 jobs. Yes, that's the bad news. And there's no sugarcoating that pill. You've got to get around that. So the business of getting rejected will happen to you. And it has happened to all of us many times. And you then have to build up the core concept of resilience. And we talk about that as not, this is how you mustn't get depressed or dejected. And you've got to, rejection is always a negative experience. But you've got to overcome that psychological hurdle. So there's some big psychological issues that you've got to face up to here. And then we move into the interaction of the recruitment cycle and the job hunting cycle. So this is a couple of slides from the week 2 presentation. And the business of a new job, begins with a firm. And it's not the HR department who decides to recruit someone. It is one of the operating units of the firm decides that they've got a new job and they want to recruit someone. They know it's going to take some time to do this. And firms know this. People are very busy say, I'm so busy, I haven't got time to recruit people, which is, drastic irony, really. Anyway, in a well-run company, you think, yep, we're going to hire someone, and then we go on the thing that they internally call the recruitment cycle, because there's a whole series of processes that they need to do. Now, you don't need to know all of these, because you're not going to become HR professionals or managers just immediately, but you should be aware that there is a process, and it's going on. And in the end, it produces something which is a posting, an advert for a job. Okay, and that's the point at which you, as the job hunter, come in with your own job cycle. So it is like 2 cogs of a wheel going round and intersecting, and they intersect at certain points. So they put out the advert and you are searching along and think about it, and maybe you decide that one's not right for you. Okay, but then you decide you fall upon one which is. So then you say, okay, and you look at your standard curriculum vitae or CV, and then you draw up a cover letter, and then you send them off. Now, it might be physically by letter, it might be in an email. So an email with attachment of a CV and a cover letter from you, or it might be an application form, which is the cover letter, the CL. And then what happens? Well, the firm then gets busy. So it receives hundreds of CVs and cover letters, and it goes through an internal sifting process. And it's not just one sifting process, usually, it is a series of three. And there's some strong advice that we give you, which is why we are so insistent on things like the layout and length of CVs and cover letters, because you have to get through a series of hurdles, and you have to get put into the right pile and so on. Otherwise, all of your work on your CV and your cover letters is wasted. So that's why we're quite strict about the requirements on a cover letter and a CV. And you may get the rejection. 96 of them are, or 90% of them are rejected. The exact ratios vary, but the majority of people are rejected. And sadly, you always used to get a rejection letter. That's what we call the thin letter, and it comes through with "Thank you for your application," first paragraph, blah blah blah. Second paragraph begins with the word "unfortunately," and then you know what's coming next. You haven't got the interview. And that's when you need this core concept of resilience. You've got to bounce back. We show you some techniques in weeks 2 and 4 for bouncing back again and keeping up the numbers and so on. Okay, and that is when you really need that resilience to keep on going. Okay, we've all been there. And then you go again and you find another job, and maybe this is good, and you actually get an interview. And then, of course, you may not get the job just because you got an interview. Okay, so 75% of people going for the interview are not going to get the job. That's a rough ratio. It might be, 2 jobs going out of 10 interviews or something like that. Who knows? But, those are the sorts of ratios you can be looking for. And then finally, of course, you may get the job interview and you may get the job offer. And then you've got a result. Well done. That's exactly what we want. Okay. And then you say, okay, and you respond in writing saying, yes, I do want the job. And then you start work. And that is important.